While rummaging through an old attic, I came across a small box filled with some very old yet incredibly interesting gadgets. I asked around, whose stuff is this? But no one had a clue. So today we're going to show you what people were using almost 100 years ago. The first thing I pulled out was a huge black case. Is it locked or what? I had no idea what was inside, and trying to find the key seemed hopeless. Alright, guess we'll figure it out later. Maybe we can force it open somehow. I didn't really want to break the lock, because that would mean breaking the entire case. But then... Whoa! It was a typewriter. Hopefully it still works. At first I had no idea how to use it. Everything's purely mechanical. Every single function has its own system of gears, levers and springs. But after fiddling with it for a while, it finally started to make sense. Let's try typing something. First, you feed a sheet of paper into the tray, slide the carriage all the way to the side, and you're ready to go. Each keystroke triggers a little hammer with the letter engraved on it. And every time you press a key, the carriage shifts forward by one notch. You really have to hit the keys hard to get a clear imprint. There is no light tapping here. After a bit of practice, I started getting the hang of it. To move to the next line, you have to slide the carriage back manually and pull this lever. Basically, the old school version of the enter key. But wait, you're probably wondering, where do the letters actually come from? Do you need to ink it up or something? Turns out all the ink is stored in this little ribbon. We had to order a new one, because the original that came with the machine had completely dried out. The ribbon is tightly integrated with the mechanism. Every time you press a key, it moves forward a bit. When the hammer strikes, the ribbon shifts into place and prints the letter. And if you want to type a capital letter or a special character, there is this key right here, Shift. It literally shifts the mechanism. So the hammer hits the second symbol. That's actually where the modern Shift key gets its name from. Honestly, this thing doesn't even feel that outdated. If the keys were a bit softer, I'm sure some people today would still be using it. But what if you make a typo? On this particular machine, there is nothing you can do. However, more expensive models had a second ribbon, a white correction strip. Basically, it worked like an early version of the delete key. The only downside, you have to press each key all the way down. And one at a time, otherwise the hammers get tangled up like this. But now, modern keyboards make it easy to learn 10-finger typing. Right now I can hit about 310 characters per minute. So, just for fun, I decided to time myself typing a full page on the typewriter. I had ChatGPT generate a short essay, hit start on the stopwatch, and got to work. Turns out the text only filled half a page, so I had to freestyle the second half. It took nearly 36 minutes. And man, my fingers were killing me. Still, the result looks oddly satisfying. It doesn't feel like something printed from a machine, it's got charm. I scanned the whole page and had ChatGPT check it for typos. Wanna guess how many? 52 typos! Yep. Luckily, with the modern keyboard you can just do this. Next, I got curious. How does this thing actually work on the inside? Time to take it apart. Off comes the cover. Every single key has its own tiny spring. Can you imagine how much of a pain that must have been to manufacture? These days, robots print everything onto circuit boards, but back then someone had to attach each spring by hand. We propped it up on a stack of books to get a look underneath. These little teeth here, they control the movement of the carriage. So many tiny parts. And yet the whole thing runs flawlessly. Not a single glitch. Honestly, I was blown away by how reliable old mechanical stuff is. Metal doesn't lag, it doesn't crash, it just works. Turns out the box had even cooler stuff inside. Whoa, this is a full-on treasure chest. What's this? Some kind of case? I think you already guessed what's inside. A very old camera. It actually still looks functional. But like, where do you charge it? And where is the SD card slot? Anyway, this is a fully manual bellows style camera. It shoots on film. We had to wait 3 days for the roll to arrive before we could even try taking a picture. Since film is expensive, you've gotta frame your shot carefully. You pull it out of the case, extend the bellows, and mount it on a tripod. Then point it at your subject. Inside is a ground glass that shows a flipped version of the image. It's easier to see here. That's how you roughly set your composition and focus, by turning this wheel based on the markings. If needed, you can shift the lens within the frame to adjust the shot. Once you're at this point, the camera is ready, and be careful, you really don't wanna mess anything up. The film has to be loaded between 2 of these metal plates. That whole setup then gets inserted into the camera. Next, we set the aperture, basically the size of the hole in the shutter. The wider it is, the more light comes in, and the blurrier the background gets. That's just physics, and it still works the same way in modern cameras. If you close it down, less light gets through, but the background becomes sharper. Then we set the shutter speed. That's how long the shutter stays open. Again, just like on today's cameras. Once everything's ready, we remove the inner plate, and to avoid shaking the camera, you trigger the shutter with this cable release. Snap, the photo is taken. We close it back up and carry the whole thing off to get it developed. 5 days later, we got our shot back. Whoa, what's this? Man, that's heavy. Looks like a bunch of locks. Yeah, not just one. This one alone's gotta be over 100 years old. Look at that key, so primitive. This, some kind of nails maybe? Probably meant to go with the locks. Anyway, this thing's really heavy. In total, we found 4 locks. The simplest one? This guy right here. It's basically an old-school padlock with a super basic mechanism. Look how simple the key is. The one thing it has going for it. Modern thieves usually don't bother picking locks, they just cut through them. But you're not cutting this one. It's made from seriously thick metal, even if the internals are pretty primitive. Next up, the most secure locks the last century had to offer. This one called a crane lock, also known as the Austrian type. You mount it by hammering these nails straight into the door frame. Let's say this is the door. And over here, the wall. Right now, the lock is engaged. There is no way to open the door. To unlock it, you take this key and insert it through a pre-drilled hole. Then, by carefully feeling around, you shift the bolt inside. See, only the owner knows the exact length of the lever required. So a thief would waste tons of time just trying to guess how far to push. But even this design has its weaknesses. Eventually, an improved version came out, with a flip-style key and a set of guide holes. The idea is the same, hook and slide the bolt. Though honestly, give someone a full day and they could probably crack it too. Now the third version. This one is the most secure. Just look at it, it's built like a tank. So we decided to test it on an actual door to see what it's like to open it blind. First, we drill a small hole where the key goes. In a real setup, the lock body would be embedded in that hole. We lock it in place and engage the mechanism. Now let's see if we can open it. This gear here only turns if you hit the exact pin positions inside. If this were a steel door, this setup would be nearly impenetrable. Alright, this case looks like it's from the same era. Whoa, this thing must weigh like 30 kilos. Oh man, if this still works. Any guesses? It's a vintage film projector. Now, the real question is, how the heck does it work? Okay, technically this one's not exactly 100 years old, but projectors built with the same mechanical principle were used in cinemas all over the world. Oh man, there is so much going on here. Back then, being a projectionist was a full-on profession. Tons of knobs, levers and latches. This one adjusts the tilt. That's the power switch. There's even a volume control. And right here, the heart of the machine is the lamp that blasts light through the lens to create the image. To power this beast, you need an actual suitcase-sized power supply. Inside it, a voltage regulator and stabilizer. Also included a matching speaker, 2 spare bulbs, and even a couple of film reels. Let's see what's on them. Looks like it's working. Now the lamp. Whoa, damn. Something's crackling, the rollers are spinning. And inside there is a fan mechanism that rapidly blocks and unblocks the light to create the frame-by-frame motion. The most important part is threading the film correctly. Turns out the entire threading diagram was printed right on the cover of the sound reading lamp. First, you load an empty reel. That's the one powered by the motor. Then you take the actual film and feed it onto the first roller, making sure the sprockets line up with the holes on the film strip. From there, it threads through the projection window around another set of idle rollers, then down to a tensioner and a motor-driven sprocket roller. At the end of the path, there are film stabilizers, basically guides to stop it from tearing. We lock it onto the take-up reel and looks like we did it right. Turns out it's an old cartoon. We still had to fine-tune the focus with the lens. And since the image was so tiny, we had to drag the whole projector into the next room. For a screen, we just used a plain white bedsheet hung from the curtain rod. Just imagine how jealous your neighbors would have been if you had something like this at home. Though honestly, this was probably meant for schools or community centers. The film was pretty damaged though. Luckily, there was another reel, some kind of nature documentary, and this one even had sound. The film quality was way better too. Oh man, these old movies are so slow. In the age of TikTok, they're almost unwatchable. But honestly, watching it was a total vibe. It felt more real somehow. Alright, this looks like a Semovar, an old-fashioned Russian water boiler. Wonder if it still works. We were just about to make some tea. Not sure how old this thing is, but I definitely wouldn't drink from it as is. This thing needs a deep clean, so we decided to quickly restore it. Look how much lime scale there is. Clearly it was used a lot. It wouldn't come off with anything. So we had to scrape it out with a chisel. Took an hour and a half. Then we gave it a proper wash. Now that's more like it. Let's make some tea. First, we needed a bit of firewood. The firebox inside is tiny, so we had to split the logs into thin little sticks. something like this. We poured water into the reservoir, closed it up, and to start the fire we put some paper and wood shavings inside. Once lit, the chimney effect kicks in and the wood burns fast, heating the water in no time. Time to bring it to the table. The tea it makes is actually incredible. It even has a faint smoky flavor. The beauty of a Semovar is that it keeps water hot constantly, even outside in the cold. You just add a few sticks from time to time, open the little tap and you've got instant boiling water. Perfect for a long meal. After tea, we called it a night. Tomorrow we'll go see what else we can find. Okay, this looks like some kind of little pouch. And I think it comes with this little thing too. Yep. Turns out it's a compact travel shaving kit with a foldable razor. You twist it together like this, and it's ready to use. Of course, it still needs blades. Luckily, we found a few in the box. They look really old. Problem is, I don't have a beard, but my cameraman does. Nowadays you can get these blades almost anywhere, but 100 years ago they weren't so cheap. So instead of throwing them out, people actually sharpened them, using tools like the one in this case. Check this out. You unscrew this bolt, remove the little clamp and place the blade right here. These rollers are made of leather and you're supposed to coat them with an abrasive paste. With every turn, the blade flips sides, sharpening both edges at once. After about 3 minutes, it's back to razor sharp. And the best part, the whole kit fits neatly in your pocket. As you can see, we shoot this video when it was winter outside. And honestly, I love this kind of weather. Snow gently falling while you're warm and cozy inside. But now we've got radiators, some connected to home boilers where we can set the temperature, others hooked up to central heating. But back in the day, there was none of that. Every house had either a wood stove or a masonry heater. Firewood had to be prepared ahead of time in the summer. It would dry out over the months and finally be used during winter. The burn rate was no joke. One full basket of firewood lasted just about 4 hours. Let's fire up the stove. Paper first. Then kindling. Then big logs on top. Close the firebox, open the air intake, give it about an hour and the whole house gets toasty. Nothing beats warming up your feet after they're cold. You could even cook on these stoves. But in our case we had a separate one built just for cooking. The great thing about it is the giant hot surface, perfect for a bunch of pots and pans, super practical. Right next to it is a traditional bread oven. Yup, people used to bake their own bread at home from their own flour. We're making ours with whey. Add a spoonful of sugar, crumble in some dry yeast, and give it a bit of time to activate. Then mix in some flour and knead the dough. The oven takes about 2 hours to heat up. Just enough time for the dough to rise. And by the way, people didn't just bake one loaf, they filled the whole oven to make the most of the firewood. A little while later, we had this golden rustic bread. And trust me, you can't buy anything like this at a store. So you might be wondering, heat and food, sure, but how did people take showers? Well, before water heaters, people had wood-fired bath boilers. Massive setups you had to fire up 2 hours before taking a shower. Same deal, light it up with kindling. Inside is a giant copper coil that heats the water quickly under pressure. That's how people stayed clean before electric or gas heaters ever existed. I actually had a phone like this when I was a kid, but not this old. I've never seen one this ancient. Turns out most kids today don't even know how to dial a number on one of these.
Hello? Who is this?
And up in the attic we found something else. Wait, is that a generator? Oh, yeah! It's a dynamo crank for an old school induction cooling system. So here is how it works. You'd hook up the generator wires to the phone, and when you crank the handle, it sends power through the line and rings the buzzer on the other end. Sound quality? Oh, terrible. Sometimes it's nearly impossible to make out what the other person's saying. To hang up the call, you would flip this lever. As for dialing, there is no buttons. You stick your finger into the right hole on the dial, rotate it to the metal stop, then let it spin back.
Hello!
We got curious and just had to see what was inside. Okay, this right here is probably the microphone. And over here, that's the speaker. No wonder everything sounds so muffled. Let's take a look deeper inside. Everything's made out of metal. How do we... Ah, there we go. It's surprisingly simple, but honestly kind of beautiful. This right here is the bell. It's powered by tiny solenoids that strike it from either side. Then we got to the most interesting part, the rotary dial mechanism. See, every time you spin the dial, it generates a series of electrical pulses. The number of pulses tells the phone system what digit you just dialed.
Ого!
I think I know what this is. This looks like a carbide lamp. Imagine walking from one village to another in complete darkness. There were no battery-powered flashlights back then, so people used lamps like this. This one's probably a homemade version. Lamps like this were often mounted on bicycles or even horse carriages. we got some carbide. They look like little gray rocks. It's calcium carbide, a compound of calcium and carbon. When it comes into contact with water, it creates a gas, acetylene, which is actually used in welding. And that's what burns with such a bright flame. Some bicycle manufacturers even made factory versions of these lamps specifically for their bikes. But pretty soon carbide lamps were replaced by newer tech, dynamo-powered headlights, which lit up using electricity generated by the bike wheels. Those were usually installed at the factory and came as a part of the bike itself. Okay, this thing… I have no idea what it is. Some kind of mechanical casino machine? What is this? Turns out it's the great-great-grandfather of the modern calculator, a mechanical arithmometer. Back in the day, every proper accounting office had one of these. Took me a while to figure it out. Okay, I think I got it. Say we want to add 352 to something. That's 3 hundreds, 5 tens and 2 ones. We punch in the digits using these sliders. 3, 5, 2. Then crank the handle and the number appears on the result counter. Let's add 574 to that. So 5, 7, 4 and crank it again. Boom! Correct total. It's wild, no electronics at all, just gears and levers doing the math. Cranking the handle in reverse, that subtracts. It jams a bit sometimes, but still works. Resetting it, just twist these knobs. The whole machine basically works like long multiplication on paper, except it's all done mechanically with gears. But what about multiplying? First, you enter the larger number. There are two options. You could crank the handle 45 times and get the result. Or use the step counter. Slide to the tens place, crank 4 times. Slide to the ones, crank 5 more times. And there's your answer. No need to double check. This thing doesn't make mistakes. You can even use these switches for fractions, though that takes a skill. In theory, you can multiply a 9-digit number by a 5-digit number and get result in the trillions. 458,963,568 times 65,352. Alright, let's go! Typing in 458 million took 4 minutes. And I still messed it up because the register overflowed. Honestly, I was more curious to see what's inside. So we popped the top open. There is a drum that catches and turns the gear stack for the results. Opening the second cover. Oh yeah, now it makes sense. When you move a slider, these pins pop out. The more pins, the more the gear turns. And this whole bit controls the digit shift. Even though it's all just mechanical logic, it still feels like magic to me. Imagine how long it took someone to design this thing. But to be honest, I'm kind of exhausted from all these gadgets. "100 years ago, some big cities already had flushing toilets, basically like what we use now. But most people just used these old school outdoor setups, literal holes in the ground. Oh, and the toilet paper wasn't a thing yet either. People used whatever they could find. We spent 5 days filming this video. And yes, we did have to use the toilet more than once. Alright, that's it. Nothing else left in the box. See you. Peace.